Let's see some ID. You don't look like you belong in this neighborhood.
Excuse me, this is my house. I live right here.
Yeah, right. You think you can fool an officer? You can't afford this place. That's it. You're being detained for lying to a federal agent.
Check the deed. You're making...
It was a bright and sunny afternoon that felt like the perfect day to be outside, so Beyonce decided to set up a small table right at the edge of her driveway to sell some cold lemonade. She was a woman who had worked incredibly hard for everything she had in life, and she bought this beautiful house in a quiet and expensive neighborhood because she wanted a safe place to live and relax. The house was big and painted a lovely shade of cream with tall windows that caught the reflection of the blue sky, and Beyonce felt a deep sense of pride every time she looked at it, because she knew how many long hours she had worked to pay the bills. She wasn't selling lemonade because she needed the money to buy food or pay the electricity bill, but she was doing it because it was a tradition she loved, and she wanted to meet some of the neighbors who walked their dogs down the street. The pitcher of lemonade was sweating with cold droplets of water because of the heat, and Beyonce had a smile on her face as she waited for her first customer to walk by. Before we get any further into this story that is going to make you very angry but also very happy at the end, I want to know where you are watching this video from, so please go down to the comment section right now and drop your location, so I can see where my viewers are from. Everything was peaceful and calm until a dark sedan car turned the corner slowly and started creeping down the street like it was hunting for something. Beyonce watched the car approach, and she felt a little bit of nervousness in her stomach because the car did not look like it belonged to any of her neighbors. The vehicle slowed down right in front of her house and came to a stop near her lemonade stand, and the windows were tinted so dark that she could not see who was inside. Two men stepped out of the car wearing uniforms that showed they were federal agents, and their names were Josh and Frank. They did not smile or wave or ask for a glass of lemonade to cool down from the hot sun, but instead they adjusted their belts and walked toward her with serious looks on their faces that made Beyonce feel like she had done something wrong, even though she was just standing in her own yard. Josh was the first one to reach the table, and he looked down at Beyonce with eyes that were cold and suspicious, while Frank stood a little bit behind him, with his hand resting near his waist. Beyonce tried to be polite and asked them if they would like a drink, but Josh ignored her offer completely and immediately asked her what she was doing in this neighborhood. He spoke to her slowly as if she would not understand him, and he told her that they were doing a patrol because they had heard reports of people who did not belong in the area. Beyonce felt a lump in her throat because she knew exactly what he meant by that, but she stood tall and told him that she lived right here in this house behind her. Frank let out a short and rude laugh when she said that she owned the house, and he looked up at the big roof and the nice garden, and then looked back at Beyonce with a face full of doubt. He told her that there was no way a woman selling lemonade on the street could afford a mortgage on a property of this size, and he accused her of lying to a federal agent. He said that she probably worked for the owners as a cleaner or a gardener, and that she should not be running a business on their property without their permission. Beyonce felt her heart beating very fast because she could not believe that these two men were standing on her driveway and telling her that she did not own her own home just because of how she looked. She tried to explain again that her name was on the deed and that she had lived there for 3 years, but Josh shook his head and told her to stop making up stories. He stepped closer to her, invading her personal space, and demanded that she show him some identification immediately to prove that she was a citizen of the United States. He said that she did not look like someone who was from America and that they had the authority to detain anyone they suspected of being in the country illegally. Beyonce was shocked because she was born in this country and had been a citizen her entire life, and she felt humiliated that they were questioning her status just because she was a black woman in a wealthy neighborhood. Do you think it is fair for them to judge her based on her appearance? Type yes or no in the comments below. She told them that her identification was inside the house and that she would need to go inside to get it. But Frank quickly stepped in front of her path and blocked her from going toward her front door. He told her that they could not let her go inside because she might try to run away or hide something dangerous, and he insisted that she was being detained right there on the spot until they could figure out who she really was. Beyonce felt a wave of panic wash over her because she was innocent, and yet she was being treated like a criminal in her own front yard. She looked around to see if any of her neighbors were outside to help her, but the street was empty and quiet, and she was all alone with Josh and Frank. What the agents did not know was that Beyonce had installed a very high-quality security camera system just a few weeks ago because she wanted to feel safer. There was a camera mounted right above the garage door that was pointing directly at the driveway, and it was recording everything in high definition. The most important thing was that this camera also recorded audio, so every single word that Josh and Frank were saying to her was being saved onto a hard drive inside the house. The camera captured the way Josh sneered at her, and the way Frank rolled his eyes when she said she was a successful business owner. It recorded them telling her that she couldn't possibly afford the car parked in the driveway, and that she must have stolen it or was holding it for someone else. Josh grabbed Beyonce by the arm, and his grip was tight and painful as he pulled her away from her lemonade stand and toward their dark car. She cried out that she was hurting and that she had done nothing wrong, but they did not listen to her pleas and instead told her to stop resisting. Frank pulled out a pair of metal handcuffs from his belt, and the sound of the metal clicking made Beyoncé feel sick to her stomach. They turned her around and pulled her hands behind her back, and she felt the cold steel lock around her wrists as they arrested her on her own property. She told them again and again that she was a U.S. citizen and that she had rights, but they just told her to be quiet and that they would decide what her rights were. They pushed her into the backseat of the car, and the leather was hot and uncomfortable, and the space was small and smelled like stale coffee. Beyoncé sat there with tears running down her face, watching through the window as her lemonade stand sat lonely on the grass, with the ice melting in the pitcher. She felt so helpless and small, and she wondered how this could be happening in a country where everyone was supposed to be free. Josh and Frank got into the front seats and started typing things into their computer, laughing and joking with each other, as if they had just caught a dangerous fugitive instead of a woman selling sugary drinks. They sat there for a long time, and the car started to get very hot because the engine was off, and Beyoncé felt like she couldn't breathe properly. She asked them if they could roll down the window or give her some water, but Josh turned around and told her that she would get water when she arrived at the detention center. He told her that they were running her fingerprints through the system to see what her real name was, because they did not believe she was who she said she was. Beyoncé knew that her record was clean and that she had never broken a law in her life, but she was terrified that they would make something up just to keep her in trouble. While she was sitting in the back of that car, she remembered the security camera on the garage, and a small glimmer of hope sparked in her chest. She knew that even if they lied about what happened, the video would tell the truth, and the audio would prove that they had profiled her and insulted her without any reason. She stopped crying and took a deep breath, deciding to remain silent so that she would not give them any more reasons to be mean to her. She watched the back of their heads as they waited for the system to come back with results, and she memorized their faces and their names, so she would never forget who did this to her. After what felt like an hour, the computer in the front seat made a beeping sound, and Frank leaned forward to read the screen. His face went from smiling to serious very quickly, and he stopped laughing as he read the information that popped up. The system showed that Beyoncé was indeed a United States citizen, that she had no criminal record, and that she was the legal owner of the house at the address where they were parked. Frank looked at Josh with a worried expression, and they started whispering to each other in low voices so that Beyoncé could not hear what they were saying. They realized that they had made a huge mistake and that they had just arrested a woman who had done absolutely nothing wrong. However, instead of apologizing immediately and letting her go, they decided to try and cover up their mistake by acting like they were still doing their job. Josh turned around and told Beyoncé that the system was down and that they were going to release her for now, but that they would be watching her closely. He got out of the car and opened the back door, and he unlocked the handcuffs without saying sorry or looking her in the eye. Beyoncé rubbed her wrist where the metal had dug into her skin, and she stepped out of the car with her head held high because she knew she had done nothing to be ashamed of. They told her that she should consider herself lucky that they were letting her go and that she should pack up her lemonade stand because it was an eyesore to the neighborhood. Beyoncé did not say a word to them as she watched them get back into their car and drive away quickly, leaving her standing alone on her driveway. She waited until their car turned the corner and disappeared from sight, and then she immediately ran inside her house and locked the door behind her. Her hands were shaking as she went to her computer room, and she logged into her security system to make sure that the camera had recorded everything. When she saw the video file on her screen, she felt a wave of relief because the picture was clear and the sound was crisp. She could hear every insult they threw at her, and she could see the unnecessary force they used when they put the handcuffs on her wrists. She sat there and watched the video 3 times, and each time she watched it, she got angrier and angrier at how they had treated her. She knew that she could not let them get away with this, not just for herself, but for everyone else who might be treated this way by people like Josh and Frank. She picked up her phone and called the best lawyer she could find, a woman who was known for fighting against injustice and winning big cases. Beyoncé explained everything that had happened in a calm voice, and then she sent the video file to the lawyer so she could see the proof with her own eyes. The lawyer called her back almost immediately after watching the video, and she sounded shocked and furious at what she had seen. She told Beyoncé that this was a clear case of discrimination and false imprisonment, and that they had a very strong case against the federal agency and the 2 agents personally. The next few months were very stressful for Beyoncé because she had to recount the story many times to different people, and she had to deal with the trauma of feeling unsafe in her own home. She had nightmares about being locked in the back of that hot car, and she stopped selling lemonade for a long time because she was afraid that they would come back. But she knew she had to be strong, so she worked closely with her lawyer to build a lawsuit that would make sure Josh and Frank could never do this to anyone else ever again. They filed a lawsuit for $10 million, claiming damages for emotional distress, civil rights violations, and false arrest. When the lawsuit was made public, the video from the security camera was released to the news, and it spread across the internet like wildfire. People from all over the country and even the world watched the footage of the 2 agents bullying Beyoncé on her own property. The comment sections were full of people supporting Beyoncé and demanding justice, and everyone was asking how 2 grown men could be so cruel to a woman who was just selling lemonade. The agency tried to deny that their agents had done anything wrong, but the video was so clear that they could not hide the truth. The day of the court hearing finally arrived, and Beyoncé walked into the courtroom wearing a sharp suit and looking confident, even though she was nervous inside. Josh and Frank were there too, sitting on the other side of the room, and they did not look so tough anymore now that they were answering to a judge. They looked down at the table and refused to look at Beyoncé, and you could tell that they were regretting the moment they decided to pull their car over that afternoon. The judge watched the video in silence, and the whole courtroom was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop as the audio of Frank insulting Beyoncé's house played for everyone to hear. Beyoncé's lawyer gave a powerful speech about how no citizen should be treated like a criminal because of the color of their skin or the size of their house. She argued that Josh and Frank had abused their power and that they needed to be held accountable for their actions. The lawyers for the agents tried to argue that they were just doing their job and making a mistake, but the jury did not buy their story for 1 second. The evidence was too strong, and the video showed that their actions were not a mistake, but a deliberate act of bullying. The jury went into a private room to make their decision, and Beyoncé sat with her lawyer and held her breath, hoping that justice would be served. It did not take very long for the jury to come back because the decision was easy for them to make after seeing the video. The head of the jury stood up and read the verdict, announcing that they found in favor of Beyoncé on all counts. The courtroom erupted in whispers as the judge announced that Beyoncé would be awarded the full $10 million in damages. Josh and Frank looked pale and shocked as the verdict was read, and they knew that their careers were over and that they had ruined their lives by being hateful. The agency announced immediately that both agents were fired and that they would never work in law enforcement again. Beyoncé felt a huge weight lift off her shoulders, and she hugged her lawyer with tears of joy in her eyes. It wasn't just about the money, although the $10 million was a nice apology, but it was about proving that she belonged in that house and in this country just as much as anyone else. After the trial was over, Beyoncé went back to her beautiful home, and for the first time in a long time, she felt safe again. She used some of the money to fix up the garden and make it even more beautiful, and she donated a lot of it to organizations that help people who have been treated unfairly. One sunny Saturday morning, she decided to go out to the end of her driveway again, with a pitcher of cold lemonade and a stack of cups. She set up her table and smiled as the neighbors walked by, and this time, many of them stopped to buy a cup and to tell her how proud they were of her for standing up for herself. She realized that the camera she had installed was the best investment she had ever made, because without it, nobody would have believed her story. The video had been the silent witness that saved her, and it reminded everyone that the truth will always come out in the end. Beyoncé poured a glass of lemonade for a little girl who was walking her puppy, and she watched the cars drive by on the street, knowing that nobody would dare to bother her again. She had turned a terrible afternoon into a victory that changed her life forever, and she proved that you should never let anyone make you feel small or unworthy of what you have earned. The story of Beyoncé and the lemonade stand became a lesson for everyone in the neighborhood and beyond, teaching people that you cannot judge a book by its cover. It showed that dignity and self-respect are worth fighting for, and that even when you are alone against powerful people, the truth is a very powerful weapon. Beyoncé continued to live in her big cream-colored house with the tall windows, and every time she looked at her driveway, she remembered the day she won against injustice. She was no longer just the woman selling lemonade. She was a symbol of strength and resilience for everyone who heard her story. As the sun went down that evening, Beyoncé sat on her porch and looked at the beautiful colors in the sky, feeling a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in months. She knew that Josh and Frank were somewhere far away, dealing with the consequences of their actions, while she was here enjoying the fruit of her labor. The $10 million was in the bank, but the real prize was the feeling of knowing that she had stood her ground and won. She took a sip of her own lemonade, and it tasted sweeter than it ever had before, like the taste of freedom and victory mixed together in a glass. This story serves as a reminder to always be aware of your rights and to never be afraid to stand up for yourself when you know you are right. It also shows the importance of having evidence and being prepared, because you never know when you might need to prove your side of the story. Beyoncé's life went back to normal, but it was a new normal where she walked with her head a little higher and her steps a little more confident. She was the queen of her castle, and no amount of hate or judgment could ever take that away from her again. So, the next time you see someone selling lemonade on a hot day, remember Beyoncé and give them a smile, because you never know the strength that lies behind a simple act. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where someone tries to make you feel like you don't belong, remember to stand tall and hold your ground just like she did. The world can be a tough place, but with courage and truth on your side, you can overcome even the most difficult challenges. Beyoncé proved that justice is possible, even when the odds seem stacked against you, and her victory is a victory for everyone who believes in fairness. If you enjoyed this story and you're happy that Beyoncé got the justice she deserved, please hit the like button on this video right now. It really helps the channel and lets me know that you want to see more stories like this one. Also, don't forget to share this with your friends and family so they can hear about Beyonce's incredible win against the people who tried to bring her down. Thank you for watching, and remember to always stay safe and know your rights no matter where you are. It is crazy to think that a simple glass of lemonade could lead to a $10 million lawsuit, but life is full of surprises like that. Beyonce never planned to get rich from a lawsuit. She just wanted to be a part of her community, but fate had other plans for her. The agents thought they were picking on an easy target, but they picked the wrong woman on the wrong day, and they paid a very heavy price for their mistake. It just goes to show that arrogance and prejudice will eventually lead to your downfall, while hard work and honesty will always prevail in the long run. The neighborhood remained quiet and peaceful after the trial, but there was a new sense of respect in the air. People looked out for each other more, and they understood that they had to protect their community from unfair treatment. Beyonce became a bit of a local hero, although she never asked for that title, and she just wanted to live her life in peace. She continued to work hard and maintain her home, making sure that it always looked its best as a symbol of her success. She often thought about the moment when Frank clicked the handcuffs on her wrists, and how cold and final it felt. But then she would think about the moment the judge read the verdict, and how warm and expansive that feeling was. It balanced out the bad memories and replaced them with a sense of accomplishment that would last a lifetime. She hoped that her story would prevent other agents from doing the same thing to other innocent people, and that maybe the system would change because of her case. And as for the lemonade, it became the most popular lemonade in the whole city, not because it was the tastiest, but because it represented something much bigger than just a drink. It represented freedom, justice, and the American dream that belongs to everyone, regardless of what they look like. People would drive from other neighborhoods just to buy a cup and say hello to Beyonce, and she would greet every single one of them with a warm smile. She had turned a negative into a positive, and that is the true mark of a winner. So, as we come to the end of this incredible journey, let's take a moment to appreciate the power of truth. Let's celebrate the fact that sometimes the good guys do win and the bad guys do get what they deserve. Beyonce is living proof that you should never give up, even when things look dark, because the light of truth will always shine through eventually. Thank you for sticking with me through this long story, and I hope it made your day a little bit brighter. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on the next video, because I have many more amazing stories to tell you. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other, and keep standing up for what is right. Goodbye for now, and remember the lesson of the lemonade stand.